Welcome back to the Cinematographer 101 podcast. Today we are joined by a very, very exciting guest, Louis Gambardella, who has worked in lighting for about 10 years, but above all was my gaffer on both of my feature films, a short film and a sort of advert that we shot together. And he joins us today to talk about the relationship between gaffering and DPs. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'd say the best way to start is introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about sort of your work, your career.
Yeah, where do I start? So I've been, like you said, doing lighting for 10 years by now. Through every roles from Sparks to Best Boy to gaffing now. And in every mediums, from commercials, fiction, documentaries, reality TV, all sorts of things. I was based in Paris for a while, also during our time in film school, and since then I moved to Amsterdam, and I'm now fully working there for like 6 years now, something like that. And that's pretty much it. I started lighting very early on, right after high school. I think I was probably like 18 or 19, and I just stuck with it all the way until now. Also through film school, I was also working in lighting, and also I've done lots of other things in between, also from cam up and also DPing. But I'd say my first love is lighting, and I think I'm gonna be doing that for quite some time still. Yeah.
What was the thing that drew you to lighting above any other?
Well, honestly, it was an easy way in the industry, I would say. I think if you wanna ever be on a set and intern, being a light intern is very accessible. Because you probably have to just carry sandbags for a few weeks and do that sort of thing. So it's an easy way in. And actually, I started I was on a production, and I was just a set assistant. I was just bringing coffees and all that. And I saw what the light guys were doing, and they were busy carrying stuff, doing quite cool things at the time. And I think on set, usually the light guys or the kind of the vibe on set, so if you're a young kid and it's your first time on set and you see those dudes just having fun, just playing around, so they saw that I was just really bored doing what I was doing, bringing coffees and just not really enjoying my time, and they kind of just dragged me through their team, and I did halfway through production I just shifted from set assistant to being a light assistant. And then I worked with them, and we started building some sort of friendship, and then they just took me along on other sets, other fictions, and that was pretty much it. So I was kind of like, it's not that I got into lighting because I loved lighting early on. It's just I got into it because that was the way in for me, and that love kind of grew eventually as I was doing it.
Did you ever have to get a certification? Because I know in lighting, obviously anyone can sort of work in lighting, but there is a certain stage in lighting where you do have to get a certification, I think, when you start dealing with cranes and rigs and all that stuff.
So it really depends where you're from. In France, it's very much like that. I think you need to just have those certificates to be able to do things like that. In the Netherlands, it's a bit more like the Wild West, you don't really need to show any of that. So I never really did any of that, but I guess because I was just doing that super early on, I was surrounded by very skillful people who taught me all of that. So I didn't have to go through the whole process of getting a certificate. Maybe I should have done it. I think I can still probably do it. But yeah, in the Netherlands, it's a bit different, I think, than here or
I mean, you've
France.
worked with all the rigs, and so you're fairly comfortable with working on.
Yeah. But I've just learned through doing it, and maybe it's not the best the best thing to do. I would not advise it. Go get your certificate and have it legit.
Yeah. And obviously you DP a bit. I think the natural transition from gaffering to DPing is a little bit easier than from camera, just because I feel like camera you can sort of learn it on your own, whereas lighting you only really learn through experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I think let's take it all the way back. So for the audience watching, Louis and I met at film school in Paris, and it was a funny first relationship, because at first I think we were put in this context of film school, which was very competitive on the cinematography front. So everyone was trying to not only figure themselves out, but were trying to show off their certain skills, and even if they didn't have any, try and sort of be the cool DP at school. And so we were all doing our own projects, and you were DPing and I was DPing, and then you went to Amsterdam, I went to London, and then we reconnected under my short film, The Take, which you came on and gaffered. I don't know, did I approach you? Did you approach did you sort of reach out to me, or?
I don't remember, because that was the first project we did together after film school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite a step, because I think we worked once on a short film of mine at film school, which was a disaster. I mean, from my my standpoint, in terms of the my cinematography, and I mean, it was a mixture of things. But what we went from doing that to The Take was just like, I felt like there we had more freedom, but because it was new for me, I immediately kind of turned to your experience in lighting and just went like, look, this is what I want to do. I want to do an action film, James Bond style. Here's the location, but I need you to help me out on this. And that was,
you were quite ambitious with what you wanted to do, and the budget that we had as well.
Well, that's
also
the thing,
lighting wise.
Because we lit that pretty much with one source, really. I mean, we had the big light mat in the entrance hall that you had managed to rig onto the ceiling with like tape or gaffer tape and all that.
Yeah, that was
Can't say. I mean, it was a light mat, so it was okay. It was going to hold the weight, but it was dodgy.
This was quite a rig, just using gaffer tape to just tape it on the roof.
And then outside we had the what was that light?
The Lux 12.
Lux 12, which that's pretty much what lit the whole exterior.
Yeah, because we had a castle with a big garden, a massive garden, and we were supposed to shoot at night.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, what can we do with the budget that we have? So we had to be smart with it, and so pretty much all the budget that we had went into renting that light. And I remember that we had a small van, and the case from that light is massive, and it was just like the only thing in that van was that light, and maybe a few stands.
When I showed up, they're like, guys, you can't have that we can't give you the light for that van, it's too small. And we're like, no, I cannot replace the van, especially because the rental house was like way out of Paris. I was just like, guys, please, just like, let's figure something out. And we just about managed to squeeze it diagonally, but I think it took 8 of us to take it out and carry out the van, because it was just such a massive box. Then again, it was so weird because it was a massive box for a light that was much smaller inside.
Yeah,
but
I don't think they needed to give us the
really
the box,
didn't.
But yeah, that's just.
But that was fun. It was, I think on that one, from memory, I was a little. I mean, I trusted your experience, but I was a bit more directive with the lighting I wanted. I was more like, well, I want this and I want that, and then obviously this was about a few months later. It was like 2 months later. Then I got. It was a funny story. So I'm shooting. I obviously get this job on Christmas in Paradise in London, where I'm covering for a DP that's had to drop out. And a friend had called me up on it, and I'm shooting the last 2 days in London for that pickup week. And you messaged me after the first day because I'm like, Netflix film, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, if you ever need a gaffer, call me, and I was like, oh, yeah. And then the next day, the director turned to me and is like, loved working with you, shooting the rest of the film in the Caribbean in 3 weeks. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, but I want to bring my own gaffer. And he goes, fine. And then I messaged you going like, so about that offer about gaffering, and you just couldn't. I think for days you didn't even believe me. You thought I was playing with you.
Yeah.
But I feel like on that project, the way I worked with you was very different. But I think at the same time we were so out of our depth, especially me, that I really had to rely on your experience to get through it, because I mean, I was working with much bigger lights, much bigger sets, way more cast, stuff that I had never experienced as a cinematographer. I'd experienced it as an AC, as a PA, etc. But I think the way we worked was a lot more collaborative. I remember turning to you and being like, look, I trust you. Here's the floor plan. Here's what I ideally would like. And I just kind of gave you my iPad and was like, be free, do your magic. What did you think of that? Like, obviously a very different way of working.
Well, what was nice about this project is, well, like you said, first of all, we had to go through a lot of stuff to just make it work. I think that was my second feature at the time, but still very much out of my depth, like you said, thrown away in another country elsewhere with a crew that we didn't know, being the two youngest dudes on set, and anyway, just a lot of factors that made it really complicated. The good thing though is we had, was it like 2 weeks of pre-lighting or something like that?
We had about a week. Well, not pre-light. We had a week of like prep.
Yeah, a week of prep.
Or we sort of more or less 10 days.
Yeah.
But even then, even though we had time for prep, you know, we went to see the locations very briefly. As in, we'd show up to the location, director be like, yeah, this is where we're shooting, and then he'd leave. And we're just like, wait, can we have a few more minutes? And it's like, no. So we then had to convince production to give us a car for us to then go back to the locations on our own time. To then scan the locations, which I'll get to after, because I think that was a game changer as well for us. But scan the location and then revisited it on the floor plan and light plans back in our own time. But
yeah, I think the fact that we could, like you said, move around, check locations, and I think we could not have prepped it better. I feel like we spent so much time on the floor plans, on all the different scenes, how to light each shot individually. So I think before the production even started, we were so like on top of it. And then it started, and then we had to throw everything away and then readjust to everything that was happening. But I think our workflow during that time was really good, and you because you had a lot on your plate as a first time DP on a feature, and having to handle your crew and the director and everything that was happening. So you did indeed just trust me to kind of take over the lighting. You had your inputs, obviously, when it came from like light direction and overall mood, but when it came to actual the technical aspect of it and how we could achieve your lighting with the equipment that we had, then I had to step in and figure it out.
Well, I think the thing is, like you said, I acknowledge the fact that I was going to deal with a lot, especially when I also found out on the first day we arrived there that I've got a B camera operator, and I didn't even know we were shooting 2 cameras until we land and he goes, here's your B cam up. I'm like, oh, we're shooting 2 cameras. I'm like, okay, great. So I'm now realizing I'm having to deal with my whole camera crew, first AC, second AC, camera trainee, now a B cam operator and an AC. And then obviously all the lighting plus, I mean, we were what, 50 crew members, I think, on that film. And so I realized there was a lot that I was going to have to handle. And the truth is, I think in film, at least, all the work happens in the prep. And so that's sort of why I also turned to you and was like, look, you do your light plan, because when we get on set, you'll know what to do because it's your light plan. And we barely even have to talk on set. I mean, unless there's a change, or unless, we talk at the very start just to be like, right, here's the first shot. But after that, I can spend all my time with the director, by the camera, with the actors, be really sort of in a slightly smaller zone of focus. And you can sort of go off and do your stuff.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think the important thing was also your level of honesty on the project, because I think I had never worked with a gaffer yet, who's like looking at the frame as well, because I think you were looking on like production designs monitor or something.
I might have had even my own monitor, I think,
probably
during that time.
And it was sort of like you would genuinely tell me, it's like, this isn't amazing, like give me 5 more minutes, let me figure something out.
Yeah.
And also, funny anecdote, I think, how is it working with who was meant to be the gaffer? Because obviously when I signed on, I said I wanted to bring my own gaffer, and they'd already had a gaffer. And he ended up becoming your best boy. He was like 30 years older than you, was demoted to your best boy.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
Yeah, where do I start? No, honestly, it worked quite well in the end, because as soon as we arrived on the island where we were shooting, I talked to him right away, and I was like, yeah, this is what's happening. I'm here. I'm gonna be doing what you were supposed to do. I'm sorry, this is what it is, and you're gonna have to help me out and be my right hand man, especially because he was the gaffer previously on this island, so all the sparks were working with him, so he had his own team, and then I had to step up and be like, yeah, now you guys are working indirectly for me, So I told him straight away, like, and I'm sure that he saw me he saw this young kid, and he was like, yeah, whatever, I don't, you can tell me whatever you want, I'm not gonna listen, but still we had to make it work. So actually, in the end, he was there, and he was quite helpful, and I think without him, I would have struggled much more. So he understood the situation, but yeah, it was a bit scary to just kind of show up, and you have this guy who's got 20 years of experience, and you're just like, okay, sorry, but.
And I think the other big issue that we had on that shoot, compared to anything that we had worked on or went on to work on, is we obviously didn't get to pick our kit. I didn't get to pick the camera or the lens, and you didn't get to pick the lighting, because the director producer had bought all this kit and shipped it to the Caribbean even before we got there.
And that was tricky.
Yeah, you worked with, I mean, there was a lot of lighting. I think you had this whole warehouse worth of lighting, but the problem is I think all of it was pretty old. But there was another issue. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, we had a voltage issue, because we got on the island, and they just bought like literally a whole boat full of lighting that came from the US for that production. So they tried to replace their old kit with all those new lights. So we got all those new toys pretty much, and I think all the other lights that they had previously were on different voltage, so it did not match. So you couldn't work with one light and the ballast from the same light from what we previously had. So it was just it was kind of a nightmare to figure out what could work, what didn't work. Also, we had a genie that then couldn't power our light, so we had to just kind of like modify the genie ourselves so we could get the right voltage out of it and that sort of thing. So it was it was quite tricky.
But I think most of that film we ended up lighting on like LEDs. I mean, we used a few HMIs mostly as our sort of moonlights, I think.
Yeah.
But I think we use mostly sky panels. Obviously, during the day, we did a lot of like mirrors and diffusion and all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that.
I mean, to be fair, this whole shoot was kind of like a survival mode for either of us. It was just trying to just survive the day, try to do the best that we could, and use the tools that we had in the best way possible. But it was tricky to be efficient in the end, because we were so like novice, young doing this, and some days were trickier than others.
For sure.
But,
but I would say, I think what that shoot taught me, and is why I went on to bring you onto the second feature, is that the importance of the relationship between a DP and a gaffer. I think for me, more than having a good first AC, more than having a good director, more than anything, as a DP, having a gaffer that understands the way you work, that speaks the same language, that you can almost trust with your life, that's a game changer. And on that shoot, I think that really taught us that lesson, because again, we had a crew that didn't believe in us at the beginning. We had a producer director that was very much not necessarily in a collaborative style of working. We were in a new place with a star cast that had high expectations, high specifications for us in terms of our lighting, in terms of camera, etc. And it really felt like, look, we've got each other here. It's just you and I. We got to get through this, and we got to work together. And I think, even though it was very much out of our depth, we pulled it through. Yes, it's maybe not the most representative piece of work of what we were capable of doing, which we then went on to prove what we were able to do. But it was still a great shoot where I think I learned a style of relationship that I'd really enjoyed. And I actually, for anecdote, I think I first took inspiration of that level of relationship when I worked on Star Wars, and I saw Steve Yedlin on set. I just never forget, he was just this funny cinematographer, because he was on his computer on set. We're on these big sound stages on Star Wars, and he's just standing there in the middle with his computer on one of those sort of rolling stands, and he's just typing. No one's talking to him. He's not talking to anyone. He's very quiet, very much in his own little world. And they would go for a take, and he's still typing. And then they would call cut, and he would look up. He'd look at his gaffer across the stage. They would nod, and then the gaffer would go and fix the light, because he knew exactly what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, what happened? What just actually happened?
Yeah.
And I realized it's just, when you build that trust, when you build that work in prep, where you let the gaffer, you trust the gaffer, even if it's this, if he does something that's slightly more in his style, that he's doing it because it's something that you would like. And I was like, shit, that's what the, best, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've worked with DPs where the relationship's very different, where it's more like, look, I want this, so deliver this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, the good thing I would say between us is there was a friendship before any of that. So that trust is already here, and I already knew your style and what you liked. So that's already steps ahead of any other gaffer DP relationships, you know. So indeed, like knowing and understanding your vision, understanding your taste, and the fact that you trusted me to do my thing, then that's the best way of going at it. And I think that first movie we did together was kind of a training or I don't know if you could maybe a training, yeah, to for the next film that we did, which was when we started. We had so much more. We had a better understanding on how to work together, and it was just we're super efficient. Now, when talking about the relationship between my relationship between myself and other DPs, it really depends. To be honest, I feel like most of the DPs that I actually have a genuine connection with, and maybe not even friendship, but just an understanding. It's always better than if it's someone that I don't really connect with. That doesn't. I don't think. Yeah, if you don't connect with someone so well on set, then that trust is never really.
Do you ever? Because I remember on one episode, I had my first AC talk about how he tries to meet his DPs before he works with them, just to make sure that he gets a good vibe, a good relationship going before they even get to set. Do you do you ever try and do that with the DPs, where you try and meet them before you work with them?
Of course, it's not always possible though. But yeah, if you can make it happen, you should. But a lot of the time, you kind of just on commercials as well. You just have to just show up and figure it out on the day. And then DPs work differently as well. Some DPs are much more technical about it, and they want to kind of overtake your input as a gaffer and tell you how to light the scene, with where to put your stands, where to put your lights. That's fine. It's not really the way that I prefer to work. But you also have to adapt to that and make the best out of it. So some other DPs are a bit maybe more, trustful, and they want to just focus on the camera and the framing, and they kind of just let you handle your lighting. And so you just kind of adapt. But I think obviously being a gaffer, you need to just kind of supervise your people and make sure you get it done, but you should still have some sort of a creative input when it comes to lighting and where to put your stuff. So if a DP tells you from everything about your kit and where to put it, it's not really the best.
I think the way I've discussed it a lot with people is DPs are micromanagers. Yes, when you go into cinematography, it's for the creative side. You're going to be in charge of lighting and camera, and your vision is what's kind of going onto the screen. But at the end of the day, what you're doing as a DP is bringing the best people at what they do on set and knowing how to get the best out of them. That's what a great DP does. That's the difference between a good and great DP, I'd say. And this is, for me, why a great gaffer and why a great AC is so important, is because a gaffer, they spend years in lighting. They're going to know way more than a DP.
Yeah.
So it's their level, their expertise. So I don't know if it's always, obviously I tell you the style I want, and I know what I'm looking for. So if I see something you're doing and I'm like, it's not quite what I want, then I'll tell you. But at the end of the day, you're going to know a lot more about how to light a scene than I am. And the same with camera specs. Obviously I know my camera, but an AC will know, if something's wrong with your codec, or if something's wrong with your frame, your shutter speed, or whatever, your frame rate. And so I think it's always, it's always important, especially for young cinematographers working with gaffers for the first time, is trust their experience, because that's what they do. That's, what you guys have spent years working on. So, there's only so much I can tell you about lighting as a DP,
Yeah, I think the most important from the DP side is your vision and and how you communicate that to your gaffer, you know. What's the mood, how like find ways to just communicate that. And I, as a gaffer, that my job is to just kind of use the tools that I have to create that. You shouldn't have to worry about like what light we're using and where we're putting it, and you've got so much more to worry about. That's my job, to be like, okay, you want the key from that direction, this is your levels that you're looking for, I got it. Go handle your camera, go frame, go talk to actors, I don't know, but don't worry about the lighting, give me the time, I will make it happen. I think the moment you start micromanaging everything and everyone, and as a DP you're losing it, you know.
And especially, I mean, today, lighting, I mean, back then, obviously, everything was a lot more manual when we had HMIs and tungstens and blondes, which are still used sometimes. But now that everything's LED, everything's computerized, I mean, it's almost like working with a magician, because you'll be standing next to me with the iPad going, so what do you want? Okay, and then you're like turning everything off one by one, and it's probably, I think you've now worked with sort of both styles, I'm assuming, like the old fashioned, now a lot more.
I mean, when I started, I think, well, I'm not that old, but the first few years, I think LED was just starting, and I think in the industry right now, lighting is probably the most interesting, as in like the transition we're going through right now. All the new tech that's coming literally every day in lighting is kind of crazy. So we went through quite a switch, I would say, between more tungsten and HMIs back then to now, like almost, like I have buses sometimes, there's only LEDs, there's no HMIs, no tungsten, so we kind of had to adapt. I think for my generation it was probably easier than from the more old school gaffers, who probably some of them still stick to mainly using tungsten and all that, but to be honest, right now, with how fast everything is moving, you kind of have to adapt to anything. And I for sure, a few years back, like the LEDs were not as good as tungsten HMIs, like light quality wise. But now we are at a stage where you can really get some great light quality out of just LEDs. Yeah. So
have you ever worked with DPs yet, where you do like Unreal Engine previs, lighting in previs before you get to set, or not? Because it seems to be this emerging trend of doing everything lighting before you get to set, so really sort of doing 3D lighting.
I mean, personally, no, not really. I think I'm sure it's a thing, I'm sure people do it, but it's always a question of time and how much time you have for stuff like that. And it's quite rare to have enough time to really sit down with a DP and go through like all of that, all those light plans and everything. At least the productions I'm part of is kind of more, you only have a few talks with the DP to make it work, to figure it out, and then you're on set. If you have the privilege to just sit down and, like we had in the Caribbean, to just have 2 weeks and go through everything and do the plans and all that, amazing, I'm all up for it. But to be honest, it's more rare, I think, than
What would you say is your ideal prep, like both in terms of creative discussions, but also in terms of kit prep? Like, what's your ideal scenario?
Just scouting, doing a scout with the DP, making sure that by the time we're scouting, the DP knows what we're doing and the direction is kind of already set, and we know where we're shooting, in which room we're shooting, and what vibe he's looking for. But for sure, scouting together is maybe the only thing that you need. And then from that on, I think you can probably make a decent list and be ready for it. So that's what I want. I cannot ask for much more, because it's really hard to have a DP to just kind of give you the time for that. So I would say a good scout, a good understanding, doing quick floor plans when you're there, maybe using polycam or just filming with your phone, doing sketches, talking also about yeah, like big sources that you would want, and then kind of basing your kit around that. But yeah, just a good scouting is probably the best tool to have, I think, as a gaffer, to just figure it out.
When you scout and walk into a room, what's sort of the first things you look at, you know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, windows, where's daylight coming from, where's the sun going, the power as well. Do we have outlets in the walls to plug our stuff, or that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's if we can rig anything on the ceilings. Yeah, that's
Do you ever kind of think of it from a creative perspective as well? Do you kind of go, all right, so, I mean, I've walked into this space, there's a window here, but like, this corner's quite interesting. Maybe if we, depending on what the direction DP want, but you kind of already start imagining certain scenarios.
I think it's more like how can we make this as efficient as, I think more of that, like efficiency.
Okay.
How to make that set, how to light it beautifully, and also have the least possible amount of stuff.
Right.
Have a clean set so people can walk, actors can do their thing, not have stuff everywhere. So I think it's mainly what I think about, just like,
Fair.
how can I make the best thing that I can with the least amount of stuff that I can. Yeah, I think more like that. I think that's where the creative aspect comes from as a gaffer, is like using your technical skills and rigging skills to just like, okay, how much time am I gonna have, and how much kit can I have, and how can I make this work, I think.
Yeah. And obviously, going back to prep and to sort of tie into our the next part I want to talk about, which is our second feature, but choosing lighting kit. Obviously, there's also different ways of working. I assume there's some DPs who are like, well, look, this is the kit we've got, or this is the kit I want. But I'm assuming sometimes, like, I think the way I work with you is I'm just like, look, this is the style, this is the budget. What can you come up with, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of what obviously I'm assuming you'd prefer having more of a hand on lighting, but do you care really, or?
Yeah, and obviously I do, and I think, like you said, a gaffer will know so much better about the kit than the DP would. So even if you have your input as a DP, I would listen, but I think as a gaffer you kind of know better in a way.
Yeah.
So I think what's important is, again, like the vision of the DP and the budget, like how much budget do you have? And
yeah, I mean, especially when you haven't seen the locations, I guess it's harder.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, in worst cases, if you haven't seen the location, if you don't have any pictures or any of that, then you kind of have to just kind of be smart about it and have a kit that's quite like versatile and that's quite light and yeah. But I think it's really rare to not even have pictures of the location.
But do you kind of, even in scenarios like that where you don't really, even if you see certain pictures, you're not quite sure this way, do you kind of have a kit list that you kind of go, I can make anything work for with sure. Just this? For sure.
There's lights by now that what you can get out of them, whether it's input or just workability and how efficient you can use them. So there's always a kit that you have at the back of your mind. Okay, I see the size of the room, don't really know what we're gonna be doing, but I kind of know what I can use, and so yeah, for sure.
What would you say is some of the most versatile sort of kits to work with out there?
Well, I mean, if we're talking like fiction and like shorts or whatever, or not so much budgets. Just honestly, like I've done a lot of beautiful stuff only using Asteras. I have a kit of 8 Asteras, have some snap grids for them. And yeah, this honestly, you can potentially have like 8 sources coming from wherever you want that you can control, and then it's RGB. You can do so much with it. So Astera is always kind of on the list. I do a lot of documentary work as well as a gaffer, and you want to be on docus. You want to be as efficient as you can time-wise and all that, and you want to have the lightest kit possible. So Astera is always kind of doing it, and we've we've achieved some beautiful results only using those lights. So Astera tubes, Helios, Titans, always good. And then honestly, these days you just have the apertures,
Yeah.
It's they just
sort of like like a 300 or 600.
Yeah, even the 1200s or whatever.
Yeah.
Have one of each.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I that's pretty much what
Fair
I would
enough.
say.
Well, obviously, the reason I talk about that is on the first feature, obviously, we didn't get to pick our kit, but on the second one, we, that was another crazy scenario because I obviously, for the Turkish film, discovered the project, read the script, met with the director on call, signed the contract, flew to Istanbul, met with you, checked the kit, flew to Adana, checked half of the locations, and started shooting all within 7 days.
Yeah.
So it was just the most whirlwind 1 week where we didn't even really get to prep. I mean, I obviously called you and was like, look, I've got this crazy shoot. It's another feature, all the same year. And you were just like, how's this happening? And I was like, well, this will be another adventure because on top of that, Turkish film, Turkish production, Turkish crew. And that was my condition. I was like, I have to bring my own gaffer because I need someone who speaks my language, not only creatively, but quite literally.
Yeah.
But on that, I obviously was like, well, look, here we've got an opportunity. This is a project where it's closer to what we are looking to do. Very natural, very drama based. We've got amazing locations, but we don't have a lot of budget. And obviously, like you said, you saw the pictures. Only so many pictures. But on that one, you got to pick the kit.
Yeah.
What was your sort of thought process picking the kit on that project?
I don't really recall exactly what happened because we might have gotten a kit, like a list of a kit that the producer already fixed, I think, and then from that list we kind of added things, I believe, or maybe I even sent them a list before that. I don't really recall, to be honest. What I remember is we went through the rental back in Istanbul, and we kind of just picked everything when we were there, because the names that I have, in the Netherlands or even in the UK, whatever, it wasn't the same names that they had. So a net for us, whatever size we had, was a completely different thing for them, and so it was good to be there and actually just pick up the stuff that we needed. And yeah, I mean, what did we have on that? I think the biggest sources we had 9Ks, I think, HMIs, and then a few sky panels. Back then, I think when we did that movie, like LEDs was still it was a thing, but it was not as like we didn't use them as much as HMI. So I think we had HMIs, but a few sky panels, a few tungstens. I think we had a few Asteras, I think.
Yeah, you're a trusted Asteras.
Yeah. No, I think
that was it, really.
Yeah. And we had something that I really wanted to do on that shoot was to use natural light as much as we could, because we knew the locations were beautiful and that we were gonna have daylights and sun and that we could play with that. So I remember that we had a few different type of cloth and bounce cloth and grids and all that. So I think that was the plan for that shoot, to just use natural light as much as we could. Yeah,
because obviously the first one needed to be very overlit because it was a Christmas movie. Here, we had to be completely the opposite. We had to minimize the way we were lighting because we didn't want it to feel staged. We really wanted to just accentuate natural light. And on that shoot, I mean, God, we really got to experiment. I mean, part of the reason I think we got very lucky, even though it was a very tough shoot, is a funny anecdote and for the audience is the director. His wife went into labor with their first child at the end of the first week of shooting. I don't know if you remember that. And he showed up the next Monday for the second week, and he was just annihilated. Hadn't slept in like 72 hours. And he just looked at me and he's like, Chris, I haven't slept. My brain's not working. I trust you. Do whatever you need to do. And it was just like, green light, you and I work together and let's just create the best images we can possibly come up with.
Yeah. I think the difference between that film and the first one, I think the first one we were quite limited by the direction and how much trust they gave us. So I felt like we were kind of restricted to do our thing, and on that film it was really just do your thing, Chris, and make it work. And like you said, I think because the mood was very different and it was much more contrasty and much more, something that we could relate to in terms of lighting, we really could do our thing and make it beautiful, I think. And but also that amount of trust that the director gave you, also it made you feel much more confident about your lighting and your framing and all that. And I think that was the key factor.
For sure.
That you were like, okay, I can do my thing finally. And
on that project I feel like that was almost, that was the first time we really got to experiment a lot of things, both with camera and lighting. I remember with camera being able to, I'd always wanted to do a bit of a Lubetsky shot where I'm like wide open, following, two characters, very free flow. And even though that scene never made the cut, it was one of my favorite scenes just because it was just very personal. It was very human. It was very real. And it was like blue hour, just past the sunset, which is great. But even lighting wise, we got to experiment some really cool stuff. I remember, and we'll do another episode later in the season where we break down some of the lighting. But I remember where we had this night scene in the hut, and he's doing a prayer and he's being played around with by the other guys who are unplugging his lights, replugging, unplugging, and we had this beautiful HMI, and instead of having it shine through and create a bit like a moonlight shining into the hut, I can't remember if it was you or me who kind of went, well, how about we just sort of like bounce it on the water, and it just created the most beautiful rim light that was sort of moving and it was rippling on him. One of my favorite shots I've ever done, just because it was so natural and it was so beautiful, poetic. Yeah. But
I think it was kind of a dream scenario because on that film, almost all of the locations were just beautiful and really inspiring. So you could point the camera anywhere and have like something. And so that's always a good start also in lighting, the fact that you've got something beautiful and just amplify it a bit, make it look a tiny bit better, but don't overdo it. And I think that was the good thing on that film is we didn't overdo it in terms of lighting. We really just kind of embraced what we had, and we accentuated, I think that's the word, things here and there, and we just really just made it work like that. And like you said, just using a little HMI, bouncing in the water, and just bringing a bit of more level in, and that was it. That was enough.
But then we also, we were very, very lucky on that movie where a lot of the sets were incredible. We had beautiful outdoors. We were shooting in a police station. We were shooting out in the street in a full market, where we always kept it fairly natural, but we always, like, I remember for the police station, we were trying to go for like a Mindhunter style where we were having like green stairs spread out throughout the space, and it looked really good. But we also had probably one of our toughest scenes or locations on that movie, which was the main house, because the main living room, which we had like, probably a dozen scenes in that room, white walls, white curtains, white sofa, one leopard print sofa, and a white floor. It was like a sort of stone floor. And did we get to visit that location before shooting? I think so.
Maybe.
I mean, that was probably even for you, probably one of the toughest locations to light. No.
Yeah, and I think the big issue here is like you said, we had a lot of scenes in that room, and how to not light it the same way every time, how to not shoot it the same way every time. I think that was the scary part for me. How to create new moods using a white box, and so that was a bit scary. And I'm sure some of the scenes that we did there, but maybe the first ones were maybe not the best lit. And I think once we got a bit used to the room and understood it, then we really made it work. And I think a lot of the great shots in that film and great lighting was made in that room. The fact that we could use that white box and create contrast and make it interesting. And
I think the biggest trouble we had, and I have to bring this anecdote up because that was just the craziest thing. Because we moved into that location at the for the second week or end of the first week, somewhere around there. And me, the producer, and the director had sat together the night before shooting, going through every scene, going like, look, what do you need for this scene? What do you need for this scene? And I was like, oh, I need a dolly for this scene. I need this for this scene. And I said that, for the interiors, it'd be good to have a haze machine, just in case, because it'll help us shape light a bit in case the location doesn't work. And obviously by then, I don't think we had visited that living room scene, the white living room scene. So, especially when we arrived there, we're like, well, we really need the haze because we need to create texture here. And we get to that location and you're lighting, and then you're like, Chris, do you know where the haze machine is? And I'm like, oh, let me ask production. And I go to the producer and he's like, yeah, the director decided not to get it. I'm like, what do you mean he decided not to get it? He said he didn't understand why you needed it. And I'm like, for this very reason, I needed it to light these interiors. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? Why am I learning this now on set as we're lighting? And we went on to shoot the rest of that film, thanks to production design, by burning coffee, which is just the worst way of hazing a room. I remember the stench that created.
Yeah.
I mean...
But that haze was good, though. The quality of that haze that's a good tip.
Really? You thought it was...
I thought it was really good, actually. I thought it was just... With what we had, I mean, we got some amazing results through that I mean, it worked,
smoke, for sure. But it also took forever to haze.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it took us at least half an hour to properly haze the room.
Yeah.
And it would obviously stink of burning coffee.
Yeah.
I think the actors the first time round were pretty shocked.
We had to just make it work.
Yeah. I mean, do you often have situations where you have to kind of get creative, do a bit of DIY?
So much, always, and that's the fun part of the job, honestly. Just how can you make it work with what you have? And as I said, I do a lot of docu work as well, and docu is always that. It's just like, how can you make something beautiful with a few sticks and some tape and a few lights? I think that's where, as a lighting person, whether you're a best boy or a gaffer or whatever, that's where you have fun. rigging stuff and figuring it out, and yeah, using tools that you have, and when it works, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. When it doesn't work, well, you try.
Sure. Although one thing I want to actually wrap the Turkish film on, because I think it's, I've talked about, we've talked a lot about the trust in gaffers that DPs have, but I guess there is also an extent at which, you know, we might sometimes clash on something, and those clashes always come from a good place. It's, you know, disagreements happen, but you know, I'll take the last scene we shot on the Turkish film as an example, and I think that was a good lesson. I'm assuming even maybe for you, because okay, it was the last shot. It was last scene. It's nighttime. We were exhausted. I mean, you'd had insomnia for 2 weeks on that set, so it was a rough time for you. But I remember it was a sort of restaurant scene with this restaurant with windows everywhere, and it's nighttime, and we had to create some separation outside because otherwise it was going to look like a void. Yeah. And you're like, Chris, I don't know how you want to have any moonlight out there. I'm like, well, do like we did, bounce a light on a bounce board and really let it spread onto the background. You're like, the whole time you're like, no, it's not going to work, Chris. We've not got enough light. It's not going to work. And I'm like, no, trust me, it will. And I think you then finally went, you know what? Fine. I'll do it. And you put on like 3 of these sort of bounces that kind of spread and hit the leaves and the trees. And you kind of came back to me and you're like, okay, I admit it works.
Yeah, I think that came from a different place. The fact that I think we were last day of shooting, overtime, everyone was exhausted, and there was, you know, I think we were pretty much, everyone was done, and then all of a sudden the director's like, okay, now we're doing this scene, and it's a whole new lighting setup outside at night, and the crew was done. And in all honesty, I think it came from a place of like, I don't want to do this, man. I'm over it. I'm done. We just spent like 3 weeks doing this. Like I can't do it anymore. We made it work. We pushed through, and it did work in the end. Looked quite good.
So I mean, I think it just goes back to it's collaborative, and you know, it just have fun with it. Obviously, I think we can agree that trust is obviously the most important thing on set. I mean, you trust me with having your back, managing, staying in control, and I trust you with, you know, being able to give me the best light possible, you know?
Yeah, and I think trust, as you say, is probably the main thing, and also knowing that you're in this together and you're going in this together, and you have to make it work. We're all in the same team, and I think there's nothing worse than having your own team be against you or not be in the same, you know, team. So I think that's also really important as a gaffer, is making sure your crew is with you, and that you're honest with them and that you're true with them. I've had so many experience on that side, being a spark or whatever, where you're not in the same team anymore, and then you don't want to play the game anymore, and you don't want to give you 100%. And I think that's probably the worst part, is like losing your crew. So like you said, trust, being honest with your people, and knowing that you sign up for something and you just have to just go for it and make it work.
And just to add to that, I think I was talking again with some other guests about the importance of energy. I think you've experienced it with I'm interested as well, like from a spark to a gaffer. I'm sure if a gaffer isn't all there, you probably just don't feel the need to give 100%. But I think if a DP is struggling, does it like even if you feel his stress, does it affect you as a gaffer as well, or do you kind of go, look, he's dealing with his stress, whatever, I'm just doing my thing?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the energy that you have on set is the energy that you have on set, okay? Don't take it personally if something happens, if you have arguments and that sort of thing. That's part of the process. You cannot lie. It will affect you if you're shooting and then you don't get the right energies from your DP or your head of departments. And for sure, that can affect your workflow and your inputs and your energy. You just have to make it work. I think one of the frustrating thing is if you have a DOP that is maybe a bit too ambitious and a bit not really realistic in what you can achieve with what you have, and that can lead to quite some problems if you don't have enough crew members in your team as a lighting person, and the DP is way too ambitious, and sometimes it works but sometimes it doesn't work, and I think that's your job as a gaffer to kind of also like let the DP know what we can do with what we have and be real. Because a lot of the DPs do not go through the lighting way. They just shoot, and they start shooting early on, and they never become a spark, or they're never in the lighting team, so their expectation sometimes are a bit unrealistic in what you can do with what you have. So I think it's, as a gaffer, protect your people as well. Make sure that you're not killing them. Carrying sandbags for 15 hours a day can be tricky.
There you go. That's your advice for young gaffers out there getting started.
Yeah.
And any advice for young cinematographers getting started and working with gaffers?
Yeah, go through lighting for a bit. Go carry some sandbags. Yeah, honestly. Understand the kits, understand how much work you need to put in, and have an understanding of the amount of people that you need to light a scene, and the kit that you need, and then you can also relate, you can relate to your gaffer and understand what you can do. So I would say if you want to be a DP, even for your own sake as a DOP, you need to go through lighting. I think you should go through lighting.
Fair point.
That's pretty much it.
And I think as we wrap it up, I think it's important to also note for audiences, like you briefly mentioned, you DP, you camera operate, doing a lot of documentary work. So what's coming up for Louis Gambardella? What can we expect of you in the near future?
So I've shifted my interest a bit more to docus this last few years. It's a bit more my cup of tea. It's what I enjoy doing now. So I've been working on a few projects now, feature-length docs, for a few years. Some will be done this year. Some still got a few years to go. So no, right now not much. I don't have any dates in mind or anything, but definitely some cool projects will come up eventually and come out, and some stuff that I think in the docu sphere, there are gonna be some pretty big projects.
Nice.
And hopefully something with you at some point.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
Maybe we have a little fiction coming up this summer. We'll see.
Fingers crossed, knocking on wood. And well, listen, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully, there's obviously so much more we could talk about. And maybe there will be another episode. Who knows?
We shall see.
But thank you for coming on, and look forward to seeing more stuff from you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.